Welcome, everyone, to our third episode of the Retro Pool Guy podcast. I am your host, the Retro Pool Guy, and as always, I'm joined here with my co-host slash producer slash computer genius, the Drunken Beard, Nick. How you doing, buddy?
Dying a lot in Elden Ring.
Dying a lot in Elden Ring. Man, isn't everybody these days? That seems to be the hot game going around.
I mean, rightfully so. It is a fantastic game. It's very, very big and it's gorgeous. So much work and love went into it. Similar to Beyond Oasis in that aspect.
Yes, so today we will be talking about Beyond Oasis for the Sega Genesis, or if you're from the UK or Japan, it's better known as the Story of Thor. But first, I'm going to bring in our special guest for today. He is a video game music remixer. You may have heard him on the Retro Game Guy podcast at one time. Uh, let's welcome Hyde209, also known as Thomas. How you
Hi
doing?
guys.
Welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to get you here, dude. I'm a big fan of your music. Once I heard your stuff on the Retro Game Guys, I checked out your YouTube channel, and you got me hooked.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Uh, so tell us how it all started for you, man. How did you get into the video game music remixing, and what is it that you do?
Yeah, so to tell a long story short, I was born in the early 80s, and video games, like the whole culture around video games, impacted me quite extensively, as many of us. And it all started out with me and my older brother renting Sega at the local store. And just like a day before we had to return the games, we would pop into the option menu and play the music on the sound test and then record on the tapes. So we could listen back to the music when we had returned the games. And
Awesome. So
yeah,
so you would rent the games from the video store, and
mhm.
you guys would actually record the music from the
Yeah,
TV.
so just one day or so before we had to return the games, we would record the music onto tape cassette, and then we could listen to it on our Walkmans until next time we could afford to rent games.
That is awesome. I can't believe I never thought of that as a kid.
Yeah, so like video game mixtapes, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Sounds like
So
my
that's
childhood is
then.
video game, just music constantly.
Yeah, but to answer your question, how it all started for me, like making music myself, uh, I was brought up in quite a musical family. My dad played drums and my mom played some piano and guitar, so we always had instruments in our home when I grew up. And I think I was dabbling with recording and music ever since I was like 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't actually until like middle school, like the late 90s, I actually experienced some ideas of like recording or arranging or remixing video game music, because I've been listening to it all my life basically. And I think it was like maybe 1997 or 98. I found out like software like tracker programs and stuff, Fruity Loops and Fast Tracker, and to some extent music on PlayStation 1, where you could put together loops and stuff and make melodies. And I started to take like all those classic uh, Sega tracks and NES tracks and do my own takes on them.
So you've been doing this for a really long time then.
Yeah, like on and off. I haven't been doing it constantly, but like on and off since the late 90s. Yeah.
And so I'm assuming your parents were more traditional music.
Mhm.
So were they pretty supportive when you started doing the video game music, the remixing?
No, I think they didn't quite care actually. So I I think I was kind of an industrious kid, and I was always like having these small projects and stuff, and it kind of was business as usual for them. It wasn't like either way they were supporting me or they were trying to discourage me. It was, yeah, business as usual.
Okay. So, how does the process start? Like, you want to remix a song. What exactly do you do with that song? Like, how do you pick it? You know, where does the process begin?
Yeah, it usually starts with me like hearing the music, obviously, but um, sometimes I have this very like extensive back catalog of music, game music that I listen to. Uh, Previously, it was like my game mixtape, like I mentioned earlier, but later on it turned into MP3 files on my computer, and nowadays I listen to actual uh, ripped music directly from those old games. And yeah, so it starts with me hearing a track or remembering a track and thinking, yeah, this could be a cool idea to do like this, and you can sort of mash it together with this genre or use this instrument and whatever.
So there's just a lot of experimenting.
Yeah, and funny enough, I've been doing this for such a long time, but it's still very much an exploratory endeavor. Like a whole lot of it is trial and error and just throwing a bunch of stuff and see what sticks.
Well, I definitely think it's working for you, man. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying what you're putting out there. There's
Oh,
a
thank
lot
you.
of good tunes. Uh, so what is there other types of music that you're interested in other than video game music?
Oh
Have you
yeah,
ever
for
remixed
sure.
anything else?
Like I was a metalhead in the 2000s, and so I listened to a lot of heavy music.
Ah,
But I have,
another metalhead, just
yeah,
like me. I
sure.
love it. Great.
And then I used to play in a lot of bands. I once played in a punk band, and then I played in a progressive rock band, and then I played in a psychedelic rock band, and yeah, so I've played in a lot of bands.
Did you get to put on some live shows?
Yeah, actually, so one of the more successful bands I was playing in was a video game cover band. Actually, we call ourselves Killed by Koopa,
Huh, I
and
love
Killed
it.
by
we
Koopa.
played sort of 70s sounding rock music, and we made covers of classic NES games.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so
Uh,
I think it was between maybe like 2010 to 2015, maybe, or 2014. We played
have
quite
you
quite a lot of live shows.
have you ever posted any of that stuff to your YouTube channel? Is that music
No,
floating
no,
around out there for someone to
no,
find?
but it's out on YouTube because the guitarist, who's also kind of famous in video game music remixing scene, Mother Plucking Bee, he also has a YouTube channel, and a lot of our live stuff is up on his YouTube channel.
Oh, we
Awesome.
are gonna have to check that out. I'm
Oh yeah.
definitely gonna look into that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, but it's kind of cringy now, but yeah, I like it.
Ah, don't be cringy. Be proud of it, man.
Yeah,
We
sure. Oh, sure.
What
Of
one of
course
my
I am.
favorite bands is actually pretty local here. That's pretty famous is the Mini Bosses that do
Yeah,
something
I love those
very
guys.
yeah.
So that
Uh,
they were
I love
actually
seeing
kind of
them.
one of the first guys I heard that played like live video game music.
I believe they were probably my first live band I ever saw
Okay,
way
cool,
back.
cool.
I love them. But yeah, it's a great inspiration and not cringy. Come on, they still gather a crowd whenever they
Yeah,
get together.
yeah. I still love their stuff. I also quite enjoy the One Ups if you've heard them.
Oh yeah, they were here. I believe for a Comic Con or something not too
Hmm.
long ago.
Yeah, cool.
well, that's a good segue into my next question. I was gonna ask who inspired you to take this turn to the video game mixing, but
Yeah,
I
so
think you just answered that.
well, yeah, and I can credit like a lot of video game cover bands, but the person that mostly influenced me to do this was the guitarist in the band that I mentioned earlier, Mother Plucking Bee. Because when I met him, he had already put out 2 albums by himself doing video game covers in sort of a funky 70s, yeah, like soul funk kind of vibe. I was like in awe. I can, you did this all by yourself. Like you played all the instruments, you produced the record, you made the artwork and everything. He said, "Yeah, sure,
Wow.
you could do it too." And I was like,
Of course.
"Yeah, maybe I can do it too." And
Well, you are definitely succeeding. So, you have been working on a project here recently. I've been following you on Twitter and stuff, and
yeah,
you've been. Why don't you talk about that coming out? That's something to do with the Eternal Champions, right?
yeah. So you're familiar with the Eternal Champions on Sega 16-bit?
Oh yes, one of my favorite Sega fighting games, actually.
Yeah, and it's kind of a unique game actually because it was at first it was exclusive on Sega 16-bit. I mean, a lot of the other fighting games were actually arcade games ported to Sega, but Eternal Champion was designed for the 16-bit console.
I actually did not know that.
So there's no
You know,
no arcade game it's ported from, but it's an original game. And well,
cool.
I've been in love with that game since '93 when it came out, and it was actually one of the first music tracks I posted to my YouTube channel was the Eternal Champions. And so I've sort of come full circle now, sort of a decade later, revisiting those tracks with my new equipment and my new sort of more cohesive style of making music.
And so I want to ask, of those tracks, which one of 'em would be your favorite from the Eternal Champions?
Oh, it's kind of hard. It's a bit like picking your favorite children. I think Blade's theme is a very strong track. I also really enjoy sort of the more moody stuff on the soundtrack. Like the character bias theme is remarkable. And
Yeah, you know the music is good in a game when you can just, like, go to the menu and the music is good, you
mhm,
know? Like,
yeah.
that yeah.
I don't know if you know these guys, but Bone Thugs and Harmony, a band that was kind of big back in the early 2000s,
Oh, yeah, I know
they
about Bone
put
Thugs.
out an album called Eternal, I think, and they sampled quite a lot of tracks from the Eternal Champion soundtrack on that record.
That I did not know.
Okay, so you can go and check it out later. Then it's kind of cool if you're familiar with that soundtrack, you can't miss it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I had no idea that they incorporated that into their music.
yeah, it's really cool. So you can yeah, you can like imagine them sitting playing Sega between writing
Yeah.
lyrics and finding beats and stuff.
That's pretty great. That's probably what they all grew up on too.
Yeah, sure, probably.
Did you ever get into also sampling any of the demo scene stuff or using any trackers from back in the 90s, 80s?
Yeah, so like I said, one of my first endeavors, like making video game remixes and stuff, what was in Fast Tracker, a tracking
Hmm.
program on PC.
Yeah.
And so my first attempts at working with a tracker program was back on the Commodore Amiga uh, a few years earlier. Then they released Fast Tracker on PC, and it was quite similar, so it was kind of easy to navigate. And I did listen to a lot of like demo tracks, but I don't think I made anything or like completed any tracks. It was more like sketches and ideas and drafts,
So we're
really.
not going to find any like hidden hide music in some cracked files from
No, not
the
online,
late
but
90s.
Maybe back on my like old computer or some hard drive somewhere in the attic or something. I don't know.
Well, how about we give our listeners a sample of one of your tracks?
Yeah, sure.
And all right, let's give that a listen, everyone. All right, that was the track there. We hope y'all enjoyed that. I know I did myself. Uh, so that album is going to be coming out tomorrow. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Hyde?
Sunday the 20th of March. And
Which
by the time this episode is
which
out, it's probably out. Yeah.
yes, so it is available now. So as soon as y'all are done listening to this, go get it. Where can they get it? Where can we find
Yeah,
that album?
so my initial vision for this album was to get it out on Spotify and the big streaming services. But unfortunately, these tracks are not licensable because the Eternal Champion soundtrack hasn't been released officially anytime outside of the game. So there was kind of a lot of back and forth between me and trying to reach the composers and trying to reach Sega and trying to get approval for licensing the music. But unfortunately, it didn't pan out. So this is a straight out indie release on my Bandcamp site, and it's exclusive to my Bandcamp. It will be available for free, but you can always like put in a buck or two just to show your appreciation.
And that is at Bandcamp.
Yeah,
So they would look for Hyde 209 at
it's
at
yeah, it's
Bandcamp. Or,
hyde209.bandcamp.com.
okay. All right, everyone, go check that out. All right. Are you guys ready to get into some Beyond
Yeah,
Oasis or the story of Thor?
yeah, sure, sure.
All
Of
right.
course.
So, Beyond Oasis or the story of Thor is an action adventure game for Sega Genesis released in March of 1995. Released actually a little bit earlier in '94 for Japan, came out there first, of course. It was developed by Ancient and published by Sega for the Sega Genesis. Uh, Top-down action adventure. Some would compare it to Legend of Zelda. Uh, how I discovered this game and why I wanted to do an episode on it is just a couple months ago. I was just playing around on my Sega Mini system and just trying out some games I never had. I never had a Sega when I was growing up. I was a Nintendo kid, so there was this Beyond Oasis. So I was like, hey, try it out. Let's see. And when it first started up, my mind was blown. Honestly, like I couldn't believe that this was a Sega game. Like this game came out in 1995, and the graphics were just outstanding for the time. Like, I feel like it really kind of pushed the Sega Genesis capabilities. It starts out with cutscene, of the character. I believe his name is Ali. He, discovers this gold amulet, and there's a whole cutscene. There's rain. If you're familiar with Legend of Zelda on the Game Boy, escapes me. Nick, help me out here. What's it called? The
Link's
one for
Awakening.
Game
Link's
Boy.
Awakening.
Link's
Yeah,
Awakening, there's a little part on a boat, if I'm not mistaken, in the beginning.
yeah.
Yep.
Same kinda intro there for this game, but, full color, just amazing. And then when you get into the game, the graphics don't let up. Like it's gorgeous. So I started playing this game and I stopped. I was like, you know what? I need to save this for a podcast. I've never played this before, and it looks amazing. And so here we are talking about it. So, what did you guys think about these graphics and your first impressions on this game? Uh,
Per-
Go
Personally,
ahead, Nick.
they're fantastic. Granted, it is pretty late in the Sega release cycle for the Master Drive, but it was competing with the 32X at that point, and it looks gorgeous. I definitely pushed it to its limits.
Yeah, it's really quite something, and I mean, even the music is really
Mm.
good. You know,
Yeah.
so like the sound, graphics. Uh, how about you, Hyde? How did you
Yeah.
feel when you first fired up this
Yeah,
game?
so I discovered it just the same way you did. I have my Mega Drive Mini or my Sega Mega Drive Mini, and I've put on my whole collection, like soft modded it and put on my whole Mega Drive collection on it. And it was during the Christmas break. I was playing around and I thought, oh, well, I've heard of this game and I've heard it's kind of good, so maybe I'll check it out. And just like you said, I was blown away by the graphics. It looks more akin to something from like the 32X or the Sega CD, uh, like graphic wise. And it also struck me that one of my all time like idols or big influences from video game music, Yuzo Koshiro, that made the soundtrack. And he's famous for like Streets of Rage and Revenge of Shinobi.
Yes,
So
he has had his hands in a lot of
yeah,
games for Sega.
yeah. And so I pretty much played through this game in 2 or 3 sittings. I was so mesmerized by it, so I couldn't put it down. And when I had beaten the game and I saw the end credits, it's also actually produced by Yuzo Koshiro. So he not only composed the music, he produced the whole game.
That would explain quite a bit because he produced Streets of Rage, also,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so, I noticed that a lot of the combat kind of felt similar in a way,
Yeah, like the
like,
combos and stuff. And if you think about it, the main character Ali kind of reassembles Axel from Streets of Rage quite a bit.
Yeah.
I I didn't notice that until just now when you said
Yeah,
it. He certainly
it's
does. He
sort of
absolutely does.
a
Wow.
mashup between Aladdin from Disney's movie and Axel from Streets of Rage.
Yeah. Wow, I never noticed that. Uh, so talk about some more of that gameplay and, those controls. So, I did find that the fighting, was good, that it was cool to have the different moves, you get your regular, stabbing effect with just but then you can also get kicks, you can perform kicks. There's like a flip kick stabbing
Yeah.
move that he does, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but,
Yeah, that's why when we were talking about it earlier, n- doesn't feel more like a Zelda. It feels kind of more like a beat 'em up mashed
Mhm.
up with like a JRPG
Yeah.
kind of adventure game, like Secret of Mana
Yeah.
or something, which is a really cool combo.
it is. Uh There's one issue that I have with the controls was the jumping.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
So, I understand Sega was a little limited with the 3-button controller, but to jump in the game, you tap C. If you hold down C for more than half a second, you duck.
Yeah.
So, you hold C to duck, you tap C to jump, and for some reason, it took me forever to get used to that. Like, jumping was very difficult for me in this
Yeah.
one, and they certainly didn't make
I
it
can
easy.
agree. At first,
Yeah.
it was kind of unbearable, Then I remember I bought the 6-button controller for my Mini. And once I switched to the 6-button controller, it was a world of difference.
Yes, the 6-button controller for this game, really makes things a lot better because they use those extra buttons to give you quick access to the
Mhm.
menus. So, if you need to heal, it's a lot quicker with the 6-button controller, or if you need to switch weapons on the fly, you can do that a lot easier with the
Yeah,
6-button
so it's
controller, or even pull up the map.
quite less menu diving actually when you have the 6-button controller.
Yeah. So along with just the standard combat, you also get, I believe, what are they called? The spirits, right?
Mhm.
That's, the 4 summoned spirits. There's a water spirit, uh, named Dido. There's a fire spirit, uh, E Ifrit. Say that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Efreet.
Ifrit.
Alright, you get the shadow spirit, Shade, and the plant spirit, Bow. Use, they all have their different abilities, different, attacks. Uh, for me, the one I probably used the most was the water spirit because it was healing and I was taking a lot of damage.
Yeah. So,
And quite
so which one was your
honestly,
favorite then?
of my favorites, I would have to go with, honestly, I thought the shadow spirit was
Yeah,
pretty cool. Like, I know essentially it's just a hook
yeah,
shot type weapon, but I thought it
yeah. I
was
think I
cool,
thought that was
how it could
one was
grab
cool as well.
things.
Because you
It
can
could
grab
grab
things
things.
from afar. So if you see an item that you can't really jump and get, you can grab it with a shadow, and that's really cool.
Exactly, and I really liked that ability of, be able to, create a double of yourself,
Mhm.
you know? So you can wasn't exactly sure what it was for because I got stumped, but we'll get into that
Mhm.
part later. But, yeah, I just thought that was a cool ability, creating like a clone of yourself that could walk around while the real you is sitting there and can't take
Yeah.
damage. Pretty neat.
If I
But
remember correctly, like each of the spirits have the different abilities, except for the last one, the plant spirit, because I think it only has 2 abilities.
yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to the
Okay,
plant.
okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what that one was gonna do. I didn't get to it, and but like I said, we'll get into
Hmm?
some of that as we progress. Nick, did you get a chance to use any of these spirits, man? How about you?
I don't think I did actually. Unfortunately, like I said, I only got in about an hour or so um of playtime into the game. So I was just really focusing on combat and trying to try to learn everything. Poor Elden Ring has stole my soul this last
Well,
month.
it is a Souls game, so
Elden Ring claims another victim.
Yeah, like right. Speaking of hard controls,
Right
but
there, you go.
maybe.
I am definitely planning on playing through this here right
Oh yeah,
after we're done though.
you
That's for
should.
sure.
So maybe I can just sort of put in one thing here because this is kind of cool. So I mentioned earlier, Yuzo Koshiro made this was sort of the main producer on this game. When I found that out, I reached out to him on Twitter, and he was gracious enough to answer me. So this is what he said when I
Wow.
found out that he produced the game. So I'm quoting him here on Twitter. Thanks for playing. I made a basic game concept that you can summon 4 spirits with a wristband, and all the spirits have different abilities like fire, water, wood, and shade. You could use those abilities to clear the dungeon and fight against enemies. I think that was my most significant work. About the music, I used the M98 automated composition program and composed contemporary music for some of the songs. That was quite memorable.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so yeah,
That's
like
great. He
Hear
hearing
what the
actually
guy
took
hearing
the
went through.
back
time
from
out
a
to
legend like
reach
him
out.
was really cool.
That's awesome, man. I I have a few. idols like that that I wanna try to reach out to, maybe one day get on
Yeah,
this show.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say who yet, but we'll see. Um, but no, that's really cool, man. Thank you for
yeah.
bringing
And I
that in.
think
That's
I
that's
think
so awesome.
that's like one of the most coolest parts of like internet today or like Twitter, that you can actually get a hold of these legend people, and they probably some of them actually answer you back.
Right?
Yeah, it's cool because, back then, I don't think a lot of these developers that worked on these games, I don't think they really got the credit and, notoriety that they
Yeah,
deserved back then because,
Mhm.
all well, I can't speak for everyone, but all I saw, was acclaim on this game or, uh, Konami on this game. And I never really looked too deep
mhm,
past that, like who
yeah,
created these games until now when I'm much older and I realize that there's people
yeah,
behind these games that this is
yeah.
artwork that they put into this,
Like end
and
credit.
every game has a
Yeah,
great story. It seems like that
yeah,
I'm finding out. There's always something interesting to
yeah,
learn about these games now from those
yeah.
developers. So you're right. It's great to have access
So
to
like
them now.
watching end credits as a kid, it was like just a bunch of mumbo jumbo passing the screen, and I was like, okay, can we skip this?
Right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Faceless names. What do they
I
do?
actually I had some friends back in the day, they thought the names were
yeah,
fake. They thought that the names were just a bunch of
yeah,
mumbo
yeah.
jumbo that they put up, and I was like, "No,
Yeah,
those are real people."
and the funny part is
Hey,
that
But
in some games it's actually mumbo jumbo, because in the early days, like
yeah.
Capcom and Konami, they were sort of fearful that their talent would be poached by other companies. So they wouldn't allow their programmers and designers to actually put their name in the credits. So it was like fake names and synonyms and stuff.
Yeah,
oh,
it
wow.
was a hard fought battle. Early '80s, companies wouldn't even let them
Yeah,
put their credit on if you made the game. Most of those games back then were made by one
yeah.
or two people, and they had to go hide
Mhm.
their names or whatever
So
inside.
famously from memes and stuff, there's James Banana from Castlevania 1 who made the music.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
old James Banana.
Yes, we know Dave's Banana. Alright. So, you got to beat the
yeah,
game.
yeah. So
You actually
like
finished
I
this
said,
one?
I had a hard time
The
putting it down. I think I played it 3 or 4 settings, and I was kind of tired when I beat it, but it was, man, was it worth it?
I struggled in
Mm,
some parts with this game, and I don't know if it was the design of the game or if it's just me not being familiar enough with
okay,
Sega
so
games
let me
to
guess.
n to
One part you struggled on was the part in the volcano area where you have to jump between moving platforms. Yeah,
Yes.
I struggled quite
Okay.
a while with that
So,
one myself. So
yeah, the jumping platforms was hard,
Hmm.
but then once I actually made it across, I didn't have the key
yeah,
to open the door, and I had no
mhm,
idea how to get it. I was able to figure that out on my own. I've tried really hard not to use a
yeah,
guide when I played through this game because I wanted to, experience it and, if I beat it, then I'll use a guide to
yeah,
go
yeah,
back and kind of find
yeah,
things that I
sure,
missed or whatever. But I really just wanted to try to figure this one out.
Good man.
So thank you. And then so I jump through these platforms. I go. There's no key, the wrong door, whatever. So I go back. I find the right key.
yeah,
Did all that, and you know I figured that part out. So it wasn't too bad. The
yeah,
controls were tricky, but there was a part before that. Okay. Let's see. It's you're coming up the mountain
mhm,
fortress,
yeah,
right? And you get to it's like a big
yeah,
tower type thing at the top of the mountain, okay? So you can go up the stairs to the middle of it, and it's just like it looks like an ancient ruin at the top of this fortress, okay? So I'm stuck there, and I couldn't figure out where to go, and I spent 2 days, the whole weekend wandering
Yeah,
around
yeah.
trying to figure it out. I was like, "I'm not gonna use a guide. I wanna find this." I couldn't. After 2 days, I couldn't figure it out, and then so finally, I broke down, I went to YouTube, I looked up a video, I'm like, "Let me just look at
Mm.
this one part so I can progress." All I had to do was go
Yeah.
right. That's
So
it. Just go
yeah,
right. Like, you climb to the top of the fortress, and then you just keep going right at the bottom of
yeah.
the screen.
So
I felt so dumb. Oh
that's
my.
perhaps we can blame the design a bit because there's a lot of parts in this game. I wouldn't say a lot, but like a few good places where it's not totally obvious that you can go places. Like there's parts in the forest as well where it looks like the trees are blocking the way, but you can actually go between the tree trunks.
Yeah, exactly. So, what it reminded me of is, like, in Zelda games, I know we keep going back to that, but it's really not a good comparison, but with Zelda games, when you move to another screen, we're talking about the
Mm.
top-down Zelda games, okay? You can exit at any point on the screen, up, left, down, right, and you'll move to the next screen unless it's, specifically blocked off because they want you to go a certain way. But so it doesn't matter if you exit at right top or right bottom, you're still going to the next part of the screen. This game doesn't do that. Like, to get to the next part of the screen, you have to find that entryway, you know? It's like what you're talking about, how the trees, they look like you can or can't get through some of them. It was
Yeah,
confusing.
very similar to Secret Mana in that aspect where you're trying to get through an area.
Yeah, I think Secret of Mana is probably a better
Yeah, I think
comparison
so
for
too.
this game than
So
Legend of Zelda. I think a lot of people just kinda jump to that because it's
yeah,
an adventure game, and
Top-down adventure game. Insert
yeah, and
generic Zelda.
I think more
yes.
people are familiar with like A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening as well. So if you see that
Yeah,
intro, if you've played Link's Awakening, like you said earlier, it naturally draws your mind there. So
Exactly. It's
well, damn it, more people need to play
yeah,
Secret of Mana. Sorry.
they do.
very much
They
so.
really do. Um,
And a lot of people don't realize it's actually a
Mm,
three-player
yeah.
game as well if you have a multi-tap. But enough of that game.
so we did have, I had, some listeners, play along with us, this month for this game. Uh, couldn't really keep a score, there's no score to keep.
Speedrun.
So close. Uh, I basically just had people give their opinions, and really, I only had one other listener finish the game. Uh, so I'm just gonna read off a couple of their quotes about the game, and we
Okay,
can
cool.
discuss and see what we think. So JCast68K, or Jacob Entertainment System on Twitter, he says, "To me, it has a strong Golden Axe vibe, but
Mm.
is more than just walking side to side. I've heard it compared to Zelda, but I think that's a big stretch."
Mm.
So what do y'all think of that Golden
Yeah,
Axe comparison? Does that sound pretty
I
accurate to
hadn't
y'all?
thought of it that way earlier, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely has, again, the combo system. It's very much more of a beat 'em up adventure than kind of like a Zelda RPG kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree. I do see some of that in there, with just some of the way the bad guys move around and kind of group up on you definitely reminded me of Golden Axe. I would have to agree with that one. Uh, so Sore Thumb Collector, uh, we were talking on Twitter about the parts where I got stuck, and he says this. Unfortunately, I feel like this game is full of this kind of stuff. It plays tricks on you and deliberately doesn't give you necessary info. I hate that in a game design. Uh, I can understand his point because, okay, in another particular part, right before, I'm assuming what was supposed to be the bow spirit, the
Mm.
the plant spirit, uh, on if you look on the map where it shows you the waypoint of where to go, it's the castle, like where you started. You're supposed to head back to that place. But where you're actually supposed to go is in the forest before the castle. So if you go to the waypoint, it's like, where am I supposed to go here? Maybe I just couldn't figure it out, or maybe I skipped the part. I don't really know. But so I kind of see what he was saying there.
Yeah, it's
What do you guys think there?
kind of a common theme though for games from that era and the era before is try to figure it out and word of mouth. Talk to your friends.
Yeah,
Nothing's too obvious, which I enjoy. Again, me over here playing Elden Ring.
Yeah.
They don't tell you anything. So
you
I
know,
personally enjoy that kind of explore and figure out the
yeah.
game without guides and going.
right.
But I
I
can see
you know,
where
I do
people
too.
want to go, like just tell me everything and let's go.
Yeah. I don't want to be told everything. I definitely don't, but maybe a little more sense of direction, would have been a little better. Uh Also, like I said, it may have just been me confused as hell because I've never played this game and, like I said, I don't have a lot of experience with Sega. So, how about you, Hyde? Did any part did you get stuck anywhere or did you get any particular part of the game you found
Yeah, like I said
frustrating
earlier,
or
when I tried to
unnecessary?
guess the part you were stuck on that volcano level or the volcano dungeon, more or other, there's this room, big open room, and there's floating platforms going back and forth, up and down and left and right. And as if that weren't enough of a problem to just navigate moving platforms, you also have like these disappearing, reappearing wizards shooting fireballs at you at the same time. So not only do you need to time the jumps,
Yeah.
but you also need to block or attack enemies at the same time. And I seem to remember that being the part where I was stuck the most. I was stuck in the forest dungeon quite a while as well, but I didn't mind because that was my favorite dungeon. Uh, but yeah,
That's that's the dungeon that I got stuck on. That's
mm,
where the game
yeah,
ended
and I
for
can
me. I ran
understand
out
why.
of time.
But just one
Yeah,
sort of
it
annoying but funny thing about that part in the volcano level. Like I said earlier, I played this game back in December, so it was quite a while ago. So today, before this show, I watched a speed run to sort of get my memory back from the playthrough. And the guy who's playing, I don't know who he is, and perhaps that's best leave unsaid. The guy, when he comes to that part, uses bombs to sort of damage boost himself across the whole place, so he doesn't have to navigate the platforms at all. So if you stand on
wow,
the
really?
rightmost edge of the first cliff before the moving platforms, you can damage boost yourself with a bomb to the cliff on the right, and then you can just make two easy jumps to the boss room. Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
I'm
amazing how
never
people
playing
figure
that
that stuff
one
out.
fair again. Next time I'm playing, I'm using that one.
Well, they weren't being fair to
Yeah.
begin with in that part. I mean, the jumping was
Mm.
difficult enough as it is, and then you wanna throw in moving platforms and wizards. It was
I
very frustrating part for me, definitely.
I definitely love watching speedrunners after you play a game
Yeah.
and you're going, you can do that? What?
So like people find
I
like
spend
these
hours
weird
doing
great
that.
glitches and there was, oh, you can do that.
Hmm.
So, of our listeners, it looked like that, JCat was the only one who, completed the game. So, when you finish the game, it does actually give you, some stats.
Mm.
Of course, it does track your time, and it actually keeps track of the 5 best times. So, you can play through it again, see who did better. Keeps track of how many kills you got, uh, how high your HP got, how high your SP got, how many times you died, how many of the 60 jewels you collected, and also what kind of class you could end up being, like a fighter. Uh, not sure what all the classes are or the requirements to get
Yeah.
them. But, hi, do you remember much about
So
your final stats by chance? I know you said
when
it's
you were
been a
talking
while.
about JCast's playthrough, um, and his thoughts on the game, I looked it up on Twitter because I remember posting on Twitter when I had just beaten it. So there's the date was December the 12th last year. And I wrote just beat Beyond Oasis on Sega Mega Drive. What a great game! So it's just a picture of the full screen, but no stats or anything like that. So
Well, I unfortunately don't have any stats to compare to his because I couldn't beat it.
yeah,
You
sure you
can
can.
beat it. You just didn't beat it in time. That's fine.
Yeah, I just didn't beat it in time. I'm definitely gonna finish this one. It is a good game. Like, despite some of the minor flaws, with some of the level design and the controls being a little weird,
Oh yeah,
the game is really good. Uh, the only other complaint I would probably have is some of those spirits
yeah,
felt kind of useless. Like the the fire one, it's like, man, come on,
yeah,
help me out here, buddy. Like, there's enemies all over the screen, and where are you going? He just kind of drifts off. Like, I know, I thought they're supposed to kind of
yeah,
auto target the enemies on the screen, or at least the ones that are close to you, but
yeah.
he was
And
letting me
there's
down
like
big time.
some
So I just
dungeons you
switched.
need to line him up perfectly to light a torch to open the door or something. And it's tedious to line him up
Are
perfectly
the
because you
campfires?
can't move him. He moves independently of you, so you sort of move and then he moves. And then
Yes,
it has to
exactly.
be
It
pixel
made it.
perfect in some areas.
Yep. Yeah. So I kind of struggle with that one. Uh, but I mean,
Oh yeah,
overall, the
for
game
sure.
is really good, and it's a lot of fun. It's challenging, which I like challenging games. I don't want these games handed to me. I think a lot of
Mm,
games are too easy these days. So, uh, I
yeah.
appreciate a really good challenge. And like you, Nick, I like figuring things out. But some of that design, I was just kind of stumped.
Mm.
So
Can't get over all the modern tutorials for 1 hour, 2 hours into the
Yeah, yeah,
game. Can I play
yeah.
the game now, please?
yeah,
So there's very little hand holding in this
Yeah.
game, but I also enjoy when the focus is on exploring and finding out stuff for yourself. It's more gratifying when you actually do
Mm.
manage to make progress.
When you find
Mm,
something and overcome it, it's
yeah,
always very satisfying.
yeah. Well, guys, I think that about wraps it up for today. What do you guys say? Any other final thoughts on Beyond Oasis or the
yeah. Go play
story of
it
Thor?
if you haven't.
Mhm.
Definitely go play it, guys. It's really worth checking out. And this game is available
Yeah,
everywhere. Like this thing was sleeping under my nose for years, and I've actually owned it for years and never even knew it. I had the Sega Genesis collection for my PS4, and it's
yeah.
right there on the disc this whole time, and I never knew it.
That's
So
definitely a must play now for me. I'm going to after I finish this first run through Elden Ring. It's going onto my console and gonna go play that in the other room.
yeah, this is definitely a game, Nick, that I think you would really really enjoy putting some time into if you can get away from that Elden Ring.
No, it's, definitely put an hour on an emulator, but I really want to sit down and play with a nice 6 button and
Yeah, that 6
Play it on the
button makes
real.
all the difference. Uh, alright, so, real quick, before we do go, though, let's announce that next game that we're gonna cover. How about that, huh?
Yeah.
Alright, so, we're gonna do something kinda different. We're gonna cover a sports game. So now, don't get discouraged. I know there's a lot of gamers out there who aren't into sports games, who probably have never played a sports game. But this sports game is different from all the others. All right. We're gonna be doing Base Wars for the NES. Okay. Base Wars is a robot fighting baseball game. That's right. Robot fighting baseball. Okay. And not just robot fighting baseball, it's customizable robot fighting baseball. We're talking different weapons, different wheels, different legs. It's a good game. It's something y'all are definitely gonna wanna check out with us, coming up next month.
I
So,
personally don't play many sports games, and it's one of my favorite NES sports games. That's for sure, because
Mm.
not very sportsy.
It sounds
it
kind
it
of
it's
in the
very
same
wild.
vein as Mutant League Hockey or Mutant League Football on Mega Drive.
Very much so. It's pretty fun
Yes,
for
this
as limited the NES can be, but that one definitely can show what the NES can do.
yes, and I feel like it's a sports game that will, can appeal to everyone. Even if you've never played baseball or don't give 2 hoots about baseball, then, this is something you might actually enjoy, believe it or not. So, alright, Hyde, thank you so much for being our guest today, man. I'm really happy that you got to be on the show and we got to speak with you. One more time, why don't you tell everyone where they can get that album that's dropping? Actually, it's already out by the time you are listening to this. So
Yeah.
why don't
So
you let them
first
know where
off,
they can
it
go?
was my honor to be on here. It was really fun to sort of reminisce about this, like the old days, and about the game that I recently discovered and really enjoy. So you can get my album Eternal Champions Resynthesized on hyde209.bandcamp.com.
Right. Y'all go check that out.
And also any social media,
Yeah, sure. You can
YouTube, you can find them
just look
at
up
High
Hyde209
209.
on Twitter or on YouTube, and
Got some really great YouTube videos on there. I highly recommend everyone goes there.
I hope you'll find stuff you like.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, Nick. As always, you know the show wouldn't be possible without you, my friend.
Not a
And
problem.
thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to us today. We will see you next month. And as always, remember the light at the end of the tunnel may be you. Goodbye, everyone.